But you said it's being done to divide us. Okay, by who? Who's doing it?
Welcome to the Dark Times channel. So let's go ahead and get into it. Bill Maher recently had Ice Cube on his podcast, and some interesting conversation took place. And it's something that we as a community always discuss, which is the influence of these record labels and these record companies on music, in particular hip hop and rap music. And not to mention the low vibration that a lot of these record companies encourage. And that's something that I'm going to dive into a little bit later. But I want to go ahead and play a couple of clips from this interview, and then of course I'll chime in.
But you said it's being done to divide us. Okay, by who? Who's doing it?
Well, who benefits and profits off our bickering and our division? You know, it's like follow the money. I don't know their names, Bill, but if you follow the money, you go high enough, you start to see, okay, same people who own the labels own the prisons. So,
literally the same people?
Literally the same people who own the labels own private prisons. It seems really kind of suspicious, if you want to say that word, that, you know, the records that come out are really geared to push people towards that prison industry.
But they didn't make you write those lyrics.
It's not about making somebody write the lyrics. It's about being there as guardrails to make sure certain songs make it through and certain songs don't. Certain flavors are exposed on the record. You know, some records are made by committee. Meaning record company guys sit around and tell the artists, this is hot, say that, do this. We're gonna have this guy write the lyrics. We're gonna have that. So the narrative is really kind of, you know, structured and really made into what the record company want the record to be, and what the, you know, a lot of artists are frustrated with this kind of music making. This to me is in somewhat, you know, some social engineering going on here to make sure those prisons stay full. Now, there's a lot of dots to connect to make that happen, but I'm just giving you a broad example of how people at the top can manipulate what's going on with the people who are bickering and fighting. I just gave you a music example, but there's examples of race.
Can I cross-examine this theory?
Of course you can cross-examine, of course.
I know, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll say this about Bill Maher. Bill Maher is one of these individuals that thinks he's an ally because he hangs out with rappers from time to time and likes to get high and smoke weed and do degenerate behavior with so-called black people. So by default, he thinks he's down. So that's why I call Bill Maher a fake ally. When it comes to real political black issues that concern the black community, he's nowhere to be found. And 9 times out of 10, he's going to be on the opposing side, just like with this conversation right here. Ice Cube is somebody that is in the industry, and he's trying to tell him exactly what's going on, but Bill Maher doesn't want to hear it. He wants to cross-examine it. And so this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say fake ally. Bill Maher has no real interest into hearing what Ice Cube is talking about. Somebody that has been on the inside for over 30 years now and knows the record business inside and out. You would think he would shut the hell up and listen and try to get a little perspective. You would think if he was actually interested in truth and justice and reconciliation, he would have a listen. But his first instinct is to try to come up with a rebuttal.
So if your theory is that the prison industrial complex, and I agree, that's an abomination. Start off with there. Prison I've done editorials on this on my show. Prison is one of those things that should not be in private hands.
Yes.
Along with healthcare, a few other things that are like, you know, the good part of socialism. They should not be run by people for profit. I agree with that.
Yes.
I did not know about this connection to the music industry, that it's the exact same people. If by that you mean that the people who run the record companies may have stock in prisons, private prisons, that's possible because they all have stock. I mean, do they actually like Monday, Tuesday go to work as a record company executive and Wednesday through Friday go to work at the prisons? No. Okay, so if
of course they're not actually running the labels.
They have financial interest in it.
They have financial interest.
Okay, so if they have financial interest in the prisons, and your theory, if I'm following correctly, is that the kind of stuff in rap lyrics works as a funnel to get people inspired to do the kind of things that would get them in prison, right? Like, for example, writing a lyric, "fuck the police."
Yeah, I mean, writing a lyric, "fuck the police,"
might get somebody arrested and sent to prison.
That might get somebody arrested and sent to prison.
So Bill Maher definitely had a got you moment right there. Because you can say what you want about Ice Cube being somewhat revolutionary in some of his lyrics and some of the stuff that he says, but there's no denial that some of the music that he was responsible and had a hand in making, there's no denial in the detriment in some of that music and the low vibration in a lot of that music. There's no denying it. But I'll say this, when Ice Cube was making records with NWA, they were coming from a place of actually being somewhat organic. They were describing some of the things that were going on within the community, and they were talking about how so-called black people were being treated within the community. And so not all of it was necessarily low vibration. There was a lot of shit mixed in, but not all of it was low vibrating music. But you notice not even Ice Cube tried to deny what Bill Maher was saying. He was like, yeah, I said those lyrics in some of my songs. Some of my songs basically were low vibrating. He basically admitted to that, but he did it organically. Nobody was telling him to rap about this and rap about that.
Isn't it always the case anywhere in show business, but okay, let's just talk music, where the people who are the most talented and are making money, therefore, for the label, of course you get to, yeah, of course you get to make your own rules, because it's always about, if you're making money for me, you can get away with anything. Roseanne once sang the national anthem in front of some stadium before like the Super Bowl or some big game, World Series or something, and like butchered it almost on purpose. Mm-hmm. It was like, you can imagine what America made of fucking with their precious anthem. They went apeshit. But her show was #1 on ABC, so they kept her.
Mm-hmm. And so Bill Maher brought up a good point. When you're making money for an entity, a company, an organization, whatever the case may be, when you're the cash cow, per se, like I said earlier, that's usually going to give that person a great deal of leverage over a particular establishment or entity that has a financial interest in that individual or that artist. Usually the case. But Ice Cube's rebuttal to this is spot on.
I don't know about that.
Really?
I think the more money you make, the more money that you're making for a label, more than likely the more money you're costing to produce the records, to do all that. They have so much invested that they're gonna micromanage even more. Like the biggest artists got labels in their ass all the time to keep it going, to keep the cash cow rolling.
Right.
You have, of course, rogue artists that do their own thing, but usually the label kind of backs off of them and goes with the artist. They can really.
Where do you record? You must be at your home.
Yeah, right? I got a spot in.
Bingo. Ice Cube hit Bill Maher with some facts that he couldn't refute, and immediately he changed the subject, as they often do. Because you can't argue with the fact that when it comes to these record labels, the more valuable that you are to them, that means the more time, the more money, the more resources that they already have invested in you. all the money and the time that they spent trying to get your name out there, building you up, building an audience. You can't have an artist like that going off script, telling people, put down the drugs, put down the guns, stop pointing them at one another, pick up a book, get some knowledge. You can't have an artist doing that unless it's an independent artist or somebody that's well established like Nas. But coming up now, like I said, they spent too much time, too much money and resources, and not just the artists. They spent a lot of time and resources invested in the target audiences. And that's the key. The advertising that they do to try to get individuals to like this or that person over this or that person. That's all marketing. From the clothing, from the styling, all the different promoting that they do. That's too much time and money and energy poured in to try to build this mega star for them to go off script. And that's something that Bill Maher knows. And there's no argument against that. That's why he had to change the subject. And so these record companies have done a hell of a job at destroying music. Not just hip hop, but they've done a hell of a job at destroying music and turning it into the low vibration music that we have now. They've done a hell of a job. If you think about it, hip hop and rap was never meant to be the main dish. It was never meant to be the entree. Hip hop and rap was always a dessert or an appetizer at best. Something to wet the tongue. But that's not music that was meant to sustain a people and uplift a people and uplift a culture, at least not long term. It was always one of those things that, like I said, it was meant to be more of a dessert versus an entree. And now they've turned hip hop and rap into the main dish. And we're looking at a society that is the result of that. They've all but eradicated R&B music, authentic R&B music. It doesn't exist anymore. And if it does, it's more on an independent tip. There's not too many mainstream artists that really sing R&B. And so when people talk about the record companies and the record labels, especially as it pertains to the prison industrial complex, when people talk about that, that's just one aspect of the record companies. People are forgetting about how these record companies pretty much all but eradicated all these different kinds of music that we used to enjoy. And not just so-called black music. I used to enjoy listening to, and I still enjoy listening to, some of the 80s rock, 80s pop, 90s. That was good music. White people had good music back then, just like black people had good music back then. They had their lane, we had our lane. Different music, but it was a good sound. It was a high vibrating sound. It made you feel good. It made you feel something. You were experiencing something that was positive. And I'm not saying that low vibration music doesn't have its place, because it does. There's a time for everything. But low vibration was never meant to be the main dish. What happens if you eat too much cake? If you eat too much candy, you get fat, you get diabetes, your teeth will rot. It's unhealthy over a long period of time. You may have it every once in a while as a treat, but it was never meant to be the main dish. And that's the same way, and that's the same feeling and attitude that we need to have when it comes to music. There's certain kind of music that you just can't feel comfortable with listening to all the time, or at least you shouldn't feel comfortable with listening to it all the time. It should be reserved for special and certain occasions. You know, a lot of people like to listen to hip hop and rap when they work out because it gets them into a low vibrating mood, and it may allow you to lift weight, or it may make you feel a certain way while you're lifting weight, a certain energy that you may need to get through your set, or to get through your reps, or to make it through the entire workout. And so therefore it has its purpose. But outside of that, it's something that, like I said, you should be listening to sparingly. And there's so many other genres of music that have been suppressed because the powers that be, and y'all know who I'm talking about, find it more profitable. And like Ice Cube said, not only profitable, but it's also a form of social engineering. You can control an entire group of people, or at the very least, you can have a great deal of influence over people, all by controlling the music and the vibration that they're listening to. As simple as that. And so I think this is going to be a good spot to go ahead and close out. Definitely go ahead and chime in the comment section on this one. Let me know what y'all think. And as usual, peace and chaos.